Today, the staff of the UN Women Country Office in Papua New Guinea is paying tribute to its country's representative, Susan Ferguson, who is leaving the country soon after several years working there. Mixed feelings accompany her to the new duty station in Delhi, India. In this period of change, Susan Ferguson shares with us her views and expertise.
I've lived and worked in Papua New Guinea for 12 years, but in two different stretches. The first one for 5 years, and then I had, I think, 3 or 4 years out of the country, though I came and went working for the Australian Aid Program in that time. And then the second stint has been for 7 years. My experience with UN Women has been very recent, actually. I've worked as the UN Women Country Rep for 3 years of that. The rest of the time I worked in a range of different roles, and I was a contractor or a consultant for a period of time, and then I was a staff member of AusAid and then of DFAT, and came back to PNG in the second stint for 4 years with DFAT, managing the gender program.
A good feeling when leaving a country is the clear progress that has taken place in Papua New Guinea with regard to gender equality, as Susan explains.
When I first arrived in Papua New Guinea and started working as a gender advisor to AusAid at the time, which my role, I worked across all of the different aid programs that Australia funded in Papua New Guinea, and that was a huge, I think it was the biggest aid program that Australia had globally, and has remained so over time, sort of neck and neck with Indonesia. And then when the Indonesian program was cut, PNG continued on at the same level of about $500 million a year. So when I first started in that role, it was really clear to me that that violence against women was a huge issue in the country. We had staff members who were experiencing this violence. You could see it on the street where husbands would, it was not uncommon, and still isn't uncommon sometimes, to see men hitting their wives on the street, for example. It was very obvious, yet there was no concentration on this within the police force, within the hospital system, and certainly not within the aid programs funded by different donor agencies. No one had this issue of violence against women in their minds, apart from the women and girls who were experiencing that violence, who often ended up running very grassroots organisations to support other women, completely unfunded usually, and with no sort of obvious visibility across the country. And I think that has really changed. I think nowadays it would be hard to pick up a newspaper where the issue of violence against women is not discussed or indeed even headlined in the paper. There are now services in the police force, and there's services in the health system. Unfortunately, the services for women at community level, that is emergency support and housing, counselling, case coordination, are still not funded by the PNG government, though they are funded now through donor organisations. So actually, although it's still a horrendous situation in Papua New Guinea, it has changed in that sort of 10, 12 or 15 years that I've seen and been involved with the country. It has improved. The level of services have improved. The understanding of GBV and what causes that kind of violence has also changed. And there's more government ownership of the issue, and now that's sort of culminated with the GBV strategy that the government has, but also the commitment to working in partnership with the UN and others, the EU in particular, through the Spotlight program, where the Deputy Prime Minister himself is taking leadership on this. And we have now the governors beginning to mobilise together to call for changes. So, none of that would have been even thought of when I first came to the country.
Having such a vast experience in Papua New Guinea has given Susan Ferguson the opportunity to understand the dynamics of PNG, but also the needs faced in remote areas like the highlands, usually out of the scope of projects and programs from international organizations. Probably reaching those areas has been one of the major achievements of the UN Women Country Office in PNG in the last years.
When I first came to Papua New Guinea, I was involved in the electoral support program. So I didn't have responsibility as a gender advisor, but of course, being a feminist, every work that I've done, I've looked at ways to ensure that women have a say and an influence and can also benefit from programs. So it was a very good introduction to the country because it's not often that you're able to go to such a place in Papua New Guinea. It's hard to get there. And it gave me an understanding of a remote part of the country that was really had very few government services. People really had to look after themselves with their own hands. They had to grow their own food and they had to survive without health services. And there was really very little extension of government services to that area. But it also gave me a very good understanding of the fact that parts of the country were in conflict and serious conflict, and were fighting like as in a war. So I saw firsthand the impact of that on the people and the struggles that they faced, and where women were really just sort of sitting by the side of little footpaths, which used to be roads, trying to eke out a living by selling handfuls of peanuts and things. So that I've really been able to bring into my work over time, and especially most recently when the earthquake occurred in 2017, when I started as the UN Women Country Rep, and it affected a lot of these places that I'd first been to, and I knew that it was going to be very difficult providing any kind of humanitarian support there because of the larger and longer term crisis, which is around tribal fighting. And that's why I knew that it was an opportunity to bring UN women into that part of the country and try and support women who otherwise would have no support. The churches are there, still very male dominated, and there were very few NGOs also looking at supporting women. So I guess that sort of experience of being in there in the beginning when I first arrived really has come with me over all the different pieces of work that I've done, and with a sort of a burning desire really to try and make sure that women can be brought into the decision making at community level, because I really do feel that will reduce the level of violence if women have a voice at the table. And also the urgent need to improve women and girls' lives there, which are fraught with violence, both externally, outside the family, through this tribal fighting, but also within the family unit where they should be safe. So, and to that end, we're now, from the work in the earthquake response, where we set up community mobilisers at village level and trained them in how to work with each other and providing very, very basic services for women who are survivors of gender-based violence. Now we have the follow-on peace-building program, which can extend our work up there and continue to focus much more specifically on women's voice at village level and also provincial and district level.
But despite the progress in PNG, new concerns come on now under the COVID-19 global pandemic, and this is something that will occupy a big part of the time of the team at the country office in PNG, as well as of Susan Ferguson at her new duty station in India.
COVID, like the earthquake, has provided another opportunity for us to be relevant to the country and to continue to provide a service for people who really need it. As well as making sure that our existing work is still able to be delivered in such an environment. So what we've done at that very basic level is providing, or firstly worked out what are the issues for women in the country. We've done that through talking to many women and running surveys and consulting with people across the country, service providers and others, and found that one of the key problems that the original lockdown caused, well, there were two that we've really acted on. One was that a lot of the basic services for women and girls in provinces like community-run refuges started to close because there wasn't transport for staff to get there safely to provide their services, but also women couldn't access the services because they couldn't travel along the roads. So that was the first thing. And then secondly, the issue that lots of women who earn their income in the informal economy in Papua New Guinea through district and roadside markets were no longer able to reach markets, and we've assessed the impact of this to their income, which is that those women who are still in markets are only earning a quarter of the amount of money that they were earning pre-COVID. So you can see that the level of cash that these women are now earning and the circulation, therefore, of that cash around their communities is vastly reduced, and we're very concerned about that. So what we did immediately was to develop a package of support for refugees, for instance, which included personal protective equipment like masks and hand sanitizers and soaps, and information even about how to make your own soap if you can't buy it. We developed safe house guidelines of how to stay open during COVID, meaning things like how do you organise a refuge that is socially distanced. So, dealing with some of those very basic issues that enabled refugees to continue to operate. We also were able to get travel vouchers so that refugees could pay for clients to get to their centres. So that was one thing. And then with the markets work, we've advocated with donors and the government about the need for a social protection scheme that covers women in the informal economy. And many people were advocating around these things. We were one of them. And to that end, there's now this new program called the Markets Economic Recovery and Inclusion Program, or the MERI program, that is providing support for market managers so that they know how to operate a market safely during COVID, and working with women vendors to increase their ability to still run their businesses and make money during COVID in a safe way in the markets.
Normally, the personal experience comes first when leaving a country that has been home for several years. In the case of Susan Ferguson, she has developed strong ties with PNG that have marked her career and that will be with her for the rest of her life.
PNG has really been my home for the longest time I've lived anywhere in my adult life, actually. And I ended up getting married to a Papua New Guinean, and I've got children who are Papua New Guinean. So although I'm leaving, I'll always retain that strong connection to the country through my family. But of course, I feel very sad about leaving because it has been home, and I feel all the things you would feel when you leave your home. You're going to miss the people, miss the cultural richness of the country, beauty of the country. But also, I'm a bit relieved that I can hand over the country office in a good state to someone else and back to the team again to continue to take the work forward. And I think it's great to have a change of people in the leadership positions also, because I know that, you know, every person brings a different perspective, and it will be good for the whole team, I think, to I guess be refreshed with new ideas and new people as part of the team. I think we have formed a really good team over the 3 years that I've been there, and I will really miss them as people, and I count, you know, a number of the staff there as friends, and in some ways almost family. You know, the different things that we've all gone through together in the country office. So we've formed a very strong team and very strong connections, and I'm going to really miss them personally, and I'm going to miss the laughter in the office, and the collegial way of working has been really wonderful, and just the you know, the cultural competence, I guess, for, you know, everyone knows how to operate with each other, and that's a very special thing. So I'm really going to miss them, but I wish them all the very best. And I know that we've set up a really good program, and that's through our development partners' investment and through the relationships that we have with government and with CSOs. So I've got no doubt that they will go from strength to strength. And I think that, as I said, the new people coming in, our new deputy country rep and whoever is recruited to replace me, will bring a whole other dimension to the work, which will be great for everyone, I think. So yeah, I wish them all the very best, and I look forward to seeing what happens over the next few years from the seeds that we've planted this time around.
As your team sang in your farewell tribute, Susan, all the best from all of us till we meet again.